Hello, everyone. Either it's good morning or it's good afternoon or good evening, according to your time zone. Welcome to our CIAV Web Cafe. CIAV is the International Scientific Committee for Vernacular Architecture. It's under the umbrella of ICOMOS, which is International Council for Monuments and Sites. We conduct this web cafes every 3 months, and we announce them to our CIAV members. And also we announce them on different social media platforms. So everyone is welcome to join if you have the interest in vernacular architecture specifically, or of course in the topic itself that we deal with in the web cafes, which is more or less tangent to issues related to vernacular architecture. Today we have the honor to invite and listen to Antoine Raphael. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correct, Antoine. And Rafoul, yes, thanks for the correction. Antoine is a Palestinian architect. He was born in Nazareth, Palestine in 1941 and lived in Haifa until April 1948. When his whole family was expelled to Tripoli in Lebanon, they were not allowed to return back to Palestine. Antoine received his architecture diploma with honors in 1968 from the University of Illinois in the United States, and practiced architecture in New York for 3 years. Then in 1971, he moved to London to acquire British citizenship, and also he joined a private firm for 8 years before establishing his own private practice, which was running between 1980 until 2012. During this period, he remained active on the Palestinian questions, and in particular on the cultural heritage preservation side, listing also the Palestinian village of Lifta on World Monument Watch list, and later on the provincial list of UNESCO. He also produced a 1-hour documentary film named Lifta, The Last Stand, and that was for Al Jazeera on the history of the important Palestinian village. He documented or conducted TV interviews, and he wrote many articles on the Nakba. Antoine, he is also a member of the Royal Institute of British Architects, RIBA, ICOMOS, which is again the International Council for Monuments and Sites, and of course he is a CIAV member from UK. I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Marwa Dabay, and I'm the Vice President of CIAV Committee, and we have also the honor to have our President, Hossam Mahdi, and our Secretary General, Ivan Enver. So we are happy to be here with you. We have also a second Vice President, Xiao Yong, but she, due to the time zone, she will not be able to join today. We have, sorry? No, okay. So we have also today 3 discussants, Samir Abdul Haq, and we have Hala Aslan and Luna Rajab. I will introduce them after the talk. Just a quick overview on how the webinar will be running. Antoine will give a talk for around 35 to 40 minutes, and then the 3 discussants will give 5-minute short talk, followed by questions and discussion also from the floor. So all of you are most welcome to write your questions in the chat. And of course, you are also welcome to raise your hand after that, and we will allow for the questions according to the order of raising your hands. And generally speaking, this webinar recording will be kind of uploaded on our CIAV YouTube channel. So please feel free also to share with us your email here on the chat, and we will collect them, and we will share with you the recording later on. And of course, if you are interested to be a CIAV member, if you are an ICOMOS member, or if you are interested also to receive our newsletters, we are also happy to share them with you through a mailing list. Without any further ado, welcome Antoine, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Marwa. Hello to everybody, and thank you for inviting me to do this talk. It's an unusual talk in the context of what is happening in Gaza. So I'm trying to make a talk that is also a happy one, you know, because we've had a lot of sadness going on. So I want to thank everybody who's joining us, in fact, or later on due to the time zones. So How do I move? There. Sorry. What happened here? I don't know.
You need to go backward again.
Yeah.
Now you are in the last slide, so it's.
This is terrible. Why? How did that happen?
So if it's possible that you, with the arrow, you go back again to the first slide as you started.
Like this. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
No worries.
Okay.
We just had a sneak peek on the whole presentation.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay. Before I begin, I want to the subject of indigenous architecture is especially appropriate to a region and a strip in the Levant engulfed in horrific wars, the likes of which has not been seen in modern times. Lifta, it's impossible to talk about Ghazi and its vernacular without actually talking about Lifta, the village which has one of the best examples of vernacular architecture. And like Gaza, it dates back to the 15th century BCE. Why do I make this link? The link with Lifta and Gaza, as we shall see, is a historical trading routes that came from Egypt up to the Levant and passing through Jerusalem and through Lifta as well. Lifta, like many of the examples in the Gaza region, which I will show, is a traditional Palestinian village without parallel in the Eastern Mediterranean. The World Monument Fund listed it on its World Heritage List in 2015 and described it as an echo of Jerusalem's Crusader architecture, where underneath it lie unexcavated archaeological remains dating back to the 13th century BCE, reminiscent of Gaza's landscape as well. All Lifta's vernacular architecture is built by the indigenous people and the owners of the village. Their homes were built with the sandstone of Jerusalem, just like the villages of Gaza were built from the sandstones of Gaza region. Lifta, perhaps one of the most enduring monuments of vernacular architecture, it has unfortunately suffered from the politics of occupation and ethnic cleansing, and it has been left suspended in space, neglected, unoccupied, and in danger of being demolished. If the natural elements do not destroy it, then politics will. But our efforts have temporarily saved it and borne some fruit when it was put on the UNESCO tentative list. Architecture and politics. It's my belief that architecture and politics are two sides of the same coin. They are exemplified, as you will see, by the cases presented in this lecture. Architecture, whether vernacular, built form, or built fabric, is never detached from politics, no matter where it exists. If we believe that our homegrown habitat is devoid of political influences, then Gaza's ongoing war today will lay that to rest. Gaza's vernacular. It's at the outset, I would like to challenge the appropriateness of the use of the term vernacular without being really controversial. It's because vernacular describes an architecture of a community and a region, but it is actually a term only coined in the 19th century when Sir George Gilbert Scott coined it in his book Remarks on Secular and Domestic Architecture, Present and Future. Then it was made universally popular by a friend of mine, the Czech architect and critic Bernard Rudowski, in his 1964 exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, entitled Architecture Without Architects. The respected Norwegian historian and architectural critic Christian Norbert Schultz wrote in his famous book, Meaning in Western Architecture, he wrote, architecture is concerned with the essential meanings derived from natural, human, and spiritual phenomena. Architectural spatial forms mean places, people, domains, and that is the structure of man's environment. For this reason, I shall use the term built form or built fabric to describe the subject of my talk today. And I will speak of Gaza's built form to represent its indigenous, secular, and religious, anonymous, spontaneous forms as built by the people of this strip. With this challenge over, I begin my talk. The Levant, since Gaza, since the dawn of time, has had more than its share of invaders, empires, and controversies from the days of the Phoenicians in 1300 BCE until the advent of the British Empire in World War I. Of particular importance to Gaza and to the region, and when discussing the building culture of Gaza, is its location along the famous trading route named Via Maris. Via Maris meaning the way of the sea, shown in purple on this map. The route ran from Heliopolis in Egypt, taking travelers on their journeys to Damascus and beyond. Gaza's position made it the cradle of monuments and treasures of cultural significance representing more than 4,000 years of history. Let us pause and check what made Gaza what it is today first. Historically, Gaza was not a strip at all. It was a region, large and rich. In the 20th century, historic Palestine, it became one of many large districts in the country. Although oscillating in sizes, as invaders came and went, nevertheless remained an integral part of southern region of Palestine. It did not necessarily have borders per se, but it included regions of influence controlled by noble families and tribal rich families. Politically, modern Gaza has been shaped by the politics of the region and by the conquest of the British Empire in World War I, as mentioned earlier. Britain was granted the mandate in 1922, and at that time, Gaza's population was estimated at 40,000. Gaza City was populated by 18,000 people. Tragically, in 1948, as everybody knows, the year of the Nakba for the Palestinians, the newly founded state of Israel went on to capture 82% of Mandate Palestine, expelling 750,000 people. Many of those people in the southern region of the country headed for Gaza. Egypt gained control of Gaza at the end of that war in 1949 and agreed an armistice agreement with Egypt in 1949 with Israel, marked in the red line shown on this map. The area of Gaza within that armistice line is very important, is shown, produced by a map by my friend, Dr. Salman Abu Sitti, was about 555 square meters. This is of crucial importance to understand the politics that shaped Gaza ever since. Also to reinforce my view that politics and culture are two faces of the same coin. Over the next few years, from that 1949, Israel encroached into the red zone and captured a wide swath of the northern and the eastern sector of the Strip, reducing it to the present day 365 kilometers, which is the Gaza Strip. The area between the red and the gray lines on this map became known as the Gaza Strip envelope. It was this envelope that became the theater of the Hamas attack on 7 October 2023, an event which highlighted the irony of and the reason for that war. Many of the illegal settlements in that envelope came under attack, were actually illegal settlements built over destroyed Palestinian villages, farms, communities, full of architecture, full of vernacular architecture, part of the rich culture and the heritage of Gaza. They were Palestinian communities complete with their vernacular, with their built fabric, including some of the historic buildings I will illustrate later on. All that built environment was erased and replaced by illegal settlements, bunkers, and military outposts. That is why the flood happened, and it happened in that envelope alone. Heritage may be destroyed, but politics remain with us. Today, Gaza Strip is a mere 365 square kilometers with a population of 2.3 million people, most of them refugees. It is the most densely populated piece of real estate on earth, and Gaza City itself has grown to house 850,000 people. It's under this blockade. It has been under this blockade for the last 17 years. The built form of Gaza has been choked. The total blockade of Gaza is by land, sea, and air. And as David Cameron said, it is the largest open-air prison on earth. In its architectural fragmented, and while life may seem to move on above the surface, Gaza's history lay dormant in archaeological sites awaiting human intervention. This is where all the architectural experiments of Gaza's built form has been carried out today to respond to the needs of its people. You build with what material you get, and you get what material is allowed by the occupying forces. Consequently, you try to innovate, and you do it because Gaza is the only place left for you to live and to die. Gaza in the early 1920s enjoyed some of the most, some of the most exquisite architectural forms and habitat whose simple construction was enabled with mud. Context and scale predominated every quarter of the city, of the strip. Today, this has been replaced by an urban anonymous cliché of a landscape. Gaza's urban massing is blockaded and infused with tragedy. People's conditions have been affected, their customs and their family lifestyle completely altered. Until this blockade and its consequences, people in the region adjoining forested areas in the northern and eastern parts of the Gaza Strip would source their building materials such as wood from palm trees, sycamore, and even eucalyptus to form the shape of their vernacular. Mud was extensively used as a building material in farmers' and poor people's habitat. They would be located adjacent to the farmland in the remote districts of the Strip. This was carried out without resorting to skilled labor. The labor force included family members and friends, just like those people in Lifta. House roof construction would also see the use of wood strips set closely together and then covered with mud, which was then topped with straw. The problem with that type of building has always been the weather. The rain would penetrate the envelope and maintenance would be necessary. In extreme hot and cold conditions, temperature would rise and would fall, making living conditions inside unbearable. In the recent history of Gaza, we have seen the slow and consistent demise of the traditional courtyard house you see here. Two major factors have been at the root of this cause, and I'll go through them. First, the limited land space resulting in the limitation toward any possible expansion due to the blockade. And of course, the natural increase in the population numbers, which could not be accommodated within that limited space available. To get a sense of this problem, consider for the moment the following statistics of Gaza. Gaza area is 365 square kilometers, as we said, is twice the size of Washington, D.C., and is a quarter of the size of London. It's densely its density beats those of 2 major cities by miles, and it claims to be the highest density on the planet. Consequently, the only solution to alleviate population growth is to build upward and to build very quickly. To achieve this requires a new way of thinking, and for a society used to living close to Earth, the pressure of having to do that is unbearable. But you need concrete for that. While sand may be easily available in a coastal strip like Gaza, cement and its reinforcing rods and tools are materials which have to be imported, a problem which needs resolution through permits from the occupying power. Consequently, the traditional home, the vernacular traditional home of Gaza, would be lost for good, as the traditional family of 5 to 10 people could not be accommodated anymore. And this was replaced by the modern concrete cell. In the high-rise construction, and small families which could not afford such a thing, they will have to do with as little space as they can, and it also results in a lack of social interaction and privacy. Yet it is by a miracle of fate that today's Gaza Strip has managed to remain the home of major historical monuments dating back to the 4th century BCE. They remain as a testimony to an age of glory, producing comfort, producing some of the most beautiful traditional vernacular architecture and built forms in a small region along the Mediterranean Sea. And most of them were built with the beautiful Gaza sandstone. Until even recently, this stone had been acquired from the quarries in the north and the east part of the strip. But slowly, of course, these quarries are being exhausted. The buildings we illustrate include mosques, churches, religious institutions, public service buildings, and baths and meditation centers. Stately homes, of course, during the Mamluk period of 1550 to 1970, were followed also by beautiful buildings, beautiful mansions, and beautiful palaces. But what preceded this period were centuries of exceptional architecture dating back 1500 BCE. Let's take a look. Incidentally, don't think this is a lecture on archaeology. At this point in history, 1200 BCE, the Philistines were the most powerful of the sea people, and they made Gaza and this part of the land of Canaan into what later became known as Philistia, the original name of present-day Palestine. You can see how Gaza is always in the middle of all of this. In this land, the earliest archaeological finds were made in Gaza dating back to the 4th century BCE and the Bronze Age, when settlements like Tell al-Ajul and Tell al-Sakhan and Tell al-Amr were established as the first maritime zones along the Mediterranean Sea. Their location by a river channel allowed them to become important maritime settlements. Incidentally, the word Tell means a flat-topped mound or hill in Arabic, often marking the position of an ancient city. These finds at Tell al-Sakhan, belonging to the Bronze Age 3500 BCE, were discovered 35 years ago when excavations were discovered as a construction of a modern concrete block in Gaza was being undertaken. The discovered site is located around 5 kilometers from Gaza City in Wadi Ghazi. But that site has now been destroyed in the present war, and so all remnants of that age has gone, of that period. Tell al-Amr, it's a UNESCO site. It was designated as a World Heritage Site and listed on the World Monument Watch List 2012 as well, and is located 8.5 kilometers southwest of Gaza City and 3.5 kilometers south of Tell el-Arjul, mentioned earlier. It is an area of 4,300 square meters and was discovered in 1999. It contains the ruins of the monastery, of Saint Hilarion, which was founded in 340 AD. Tell el-Amr, the site of Saint Hilarion Monastery complex set at the crossroads of pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land along that Via Maris route that we mentioned earlier. The ruins of the monastery today lie in an area called Tell el-Umr in Nusayrat area of Gaza and is closely surrounded by housing concrete blocks. Saint Hilarion himself was born in 291 AD and was the founder of monasticism in the region. He was known to be a great healer and a spiritual figure in an attempt to withdraw from worldly life and to immerse himself in spiritual pursuits. It is thought that he had built himself a small, simple room in a secluded spot, which is today Deir el-Balah. Despite his desire for solitude, solitude and quiet, pilgrims traveling along the Via Maris sought him out in search of cures for ailment and for spiritual guidance. The monastery complex of St. Hilarion consisted of two churches, a baptism hall, public cemetery, an audience hall, dining room, baths, which the pilgrims along the route stopped and used. An exquisite example of local vernacular built form which merited recognition by UNESCO. Initially, buildings around St. Hilarion, simple quarters spread, and over the years, eventually became one of the largest monasteries in the Middle East. The monastery of St. Hilarion displays rare architectural elements and bears exceptional historical, religious, and cultural testimonials. UNESCO granted it tentative listing, stating that it is tangibly associated with the phenomena of the flowering of monastic desert centers in Palestine during the Byzantine period and was perhaps a center of missionary work in the Gaza region. Tell el-Umr, UNESCO said, St. Hilarion Monastery exhibits an important interchange of human values over an important period of time related to the emergence of Christianity. The site possesses an artistic mosaic of outstanding universal value, end of quote. Within the 25 acre original monastery complex, there would eventually be 5 churches, burial center, baptismal hall, ancient baths. Many such facilities served the communities which traveled along the Via Maris. Since the discovery of the site in 1999, careful excavations revealed floors and walls decorated with mosaics and limestone. Damaged in an earthquake in 1614, the site lay abandoned until Palestinian archaeologists started careful excavation in late 1990s. Soon after the start of the present attack, a move was made by UNESCO in 2023 December by UNESCO Committee for the Protection of Cultural Property in the event of armed conflict to grant provisional enhanced protection to St. Hilarion, which is the highest level of immunity in an armed conflict. And that was established by the 1954 Hague Convention. Yet that site was extensively damaged in today's bombing by Israel. Now we take a short pause to talk about a bright subject, the legends. Palestine, and especially the Gaza region, are the land of legends. The built form of society may partially disappear with the passage of time. It may even be completely destroyed in a military conflict. But somehow the Levant could always entertain legends embroidered in the fabric of society. These legends survive through history, and they do get recounted once in a while to become a national folklore. In our particular narrative, they constitute part of Gaza's DNA. So let's check two of them, please. One of the greatest legends of all time in the Old Testament is that of Samson, a Jew from the Gaza region, believe it or not, and his lover Delilah, a Philistine from the Levant. It is said that Samson was betrayed by his lover Delilah, who one night chopped his hair, depriving him of the source of his prowess. Samson was consigned to a prison in Gaza after he was blinded in both eyes. While in prison, the legend goes, Samson regained his power as his hair grew and was later taken to the Philistine temple of the deity in Gaza to be sentenced. There, in revenge, he pulled down the temple, killing him and his adversaries. The temple, by the way, was built from the Gaza stone. That legend was recounted to me as a child in my secondary school, and believe it or not, I have seen the film 1949 film so many times I couldn't believe it. The second legend was that of 1000 BCE, that of David, a young Jew who killed Goliath, a giant Philistine, with a slingshot to the head. That site of the encounter is said to have been the valley of Elah, an area not far from Gaza Strip, known as Khirbet Qulaytha, near present-day Bethlehem. Back to reality, in the 800 BCE, only 100 years after the David and Goliath legend, Gaza played a crucial role in the history of the region when its maritime status increased during the Great Babylonian Empire under its most famous leader, Nebuchadnezzar. Aware of the importance of Gaza at the southern tip of his empire, Nebuchadnezzar built the port of Antidon, northwest of present-day Gaza City. He made it into a major crossroad port along the famous route via Maris again. Antidon Harbor, also known as Balachia, was the first known and established seaport in Gaza and regarded as one of its most remarkable archaeological finds. It was placed by UNESCO on its tentative World Heritage List in 2012. Unfortunately, the site had been completely destroyed by the recent Israeli bombardment. Into history. During the Persian Empire, 485 BCE, the Gaza Strip yet again acquired new maritime importance as it became the new terminus for the caravans from Arabia Felix this time, which is present-day Saudi Arabia and the Arabian Peninsula, and which included Oman and present-day Yemen, a not insignificant fact to remember now in view of Yemen's present support for Gaza, politics and culture. Alexander the Great. At the young age of 32, he became one of the greatest leaders of all time, governing the largest empire in history. On his way to capture Alexandria from the Levant, he had to pass through Gaza and encountered stiff resistance from its people. So he laid siege to Gaza, and the Gazans resorted to the use of what? Underground tunnels to defend their territory, a system reminiscent of today's tunnels. Then Marcus Antonius came along in 31 BC and was so impressed with Gaza that he bestowed upon it the status of a Roman city, polis, in Greece, a status it enjoyed for a few centuries. This period saw the building of many temples, 2 palaces, and sanctuary buildings in the city, among which stood the temples of Zeus, Apollo, Aphrodite, and Helios. Tel el-Ajjul, some remains of these were discovered in this area where excavations were undertaken in 1930, yielded artifacts from the 3rd millennium BCE. They included portions of several private buildings and a large building covering an area of half an acre. Tel el-Ajjul is a site which had the largest palace of that period yet to be discovered in Palestine. Palace 1 is a large building measuring about 50 by 100 meters and was followed by the construction of Palace 2, of which dated to 1200 BCE. The 2 palaces, including their foundations, were built of the famous Gaza region stone sourced from the nearby fosse. Archaeologists noted that construction techniques changed from the polished, dressed, stone-lined walls seen in the northern areas of the palace to a less sophisticated, more rough style in the southern part of the palace. Emperor Constantine's ascension to the Roman Empire in 306 AD brought prosperity to Gaza. There it is, sitting in the middle. When the empire split into 2, Gaza became an important center in the eastern part of the empire. And what happened? Around this time, one religious figure arrived in the region, Bishop Porphyrius. He was later made a saint, who became the Bishop of Gaza at the age of 45 and established the Orthodox Church there. His reign marked the end of paganism, nearly 200 years before the birth of the Prophet Muhammad, which ended also paganism at that time. A new era for Christianity in Gaza has just begun. This new era saw the building of a substantial cruciform church considered to be the largest church in the Gaza region and the 3rd oldest church in Christianity, right here in the middle of Gaza, shown on the map. St. Porphyrius Church floor plan is dedicated in 442 AD and represents one of the earliest use of Gaza sandstone construction. It is distinguished by its huge thick walls supported by marble and granite columns. The church consists of a large hall, the roof of which is covered with intersecting vaults which rest on stone supports. The reconstruction of the church in its present form was carried out by the Crusaders in 1150. The church was renovated in 1856 by the Ottoman rulers. Records from the 15th century show the dedication of the church was also attested to the Virgin Mary. It has been said that the tomb of St. Porphyrius himself, who died in 420, is located in the eastern corner of the church. The church complex became a community center where metal craft and woodcraft were established. Its position in Gaza next to the beautiful Khatib al-Waliya Mosque, which dates back to the Mamluk period, attests to the religious coexistence in the old city of Gaza. Both the church and the mosque were completely destroyed in the recent conflict by the Israeli occupier. Then the advent of Islam, the period from the birth of the Prophet Muhammad in 570 AD until his death in Medina in 632, saw the beginning of one of the greatest seismic cultural and religious changes in the history of the region. The Eastern Roman Empire had collapsed, and in less than 400 years, the new religion of Islam swept the region beyond to the Andalus of Spain. And yet again, as you see, Gaza sits in the center. One of the many caliphates, one of the many caliphates in Islam, the most illustrious and my favorite were the Umayyad of Damascus, the dynasty founded by Khalif Muawiyah. Their rule in the region lasted for more than 100 years and left monuments which stand at the core of Islamic culture. The Umayyad Khalif Abdul Malik built the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, and his son Al-Walid built the Great Mosque in Damascus. When their seat of power shifted to Baghdad, Gaza became a center of intellectual importance and was made the military district of Palestine. Around 750 AD, the Umayyad Caliphate came under attack from the Abbasiyin in the east, and which almost wiped the whole dynasty, except for one Umayyad prince, Abdul Rahman I, who managed to escape and headed south and settled briefly in Gaza. He would have stayed there had he not felt the danger of the Abbasiyin too close for comfort. Destiny beckons, and he marched westward through North Africa, on to Spain, across Gibraltar, where he established one of the greatest dynasties in Europe, based in Cordoba, Sevilla, and Granada, Al-Andalus. If he had stayed in Gaza, we would not have had Al-Andalus. But Gaza also prides itself with the birth of another great figure in Islam, Imam Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i I, founder of the Shafi'i school of Muslim jurisprudence in the early 9th century. Imam Shafi'i is the first scholar to have written on the methodology of the Islamic jurisprudence. He died and was buried in Cairo, but Gaza can claim to be the burial place of his daughter in the Zaytun region. The Mamluk Sultanate in 1261. Gaza continued to be the crossroads of all battles launched by invaders until it was saved by the Mamluks, who took it over in the 13th century to the 15th century. That ushered a golden age of culture and renaissance. The Mamluk Caliphate embarked on one of the most important periods in building and cultural revival. It saw the construction of mosques, religious institutions, grand palaces, and educational spiritual facilities. One such monument is Al-Sayyid Al-Hashim ibn Abd al-Manaf Mosque of the 12th century in the heart of the old city of Ghazi. Located in the Daraj neighborhood, the Mosque of Al-Sayyid, born in Gaza in 464, was built by the Mamluks in the 12th century to commemorate the Prophet's great-grandfather, after whom this mosque is named. It's one of the most beautiful and peaceful of all Islamic built forms of worship in Gaza. The mosque has been the center of religious learning in the mid-19th century, and in 1855, the Ottoman ruler Sultan Abdul Hamid renovated the whole complex and rebuilt its great minaret, adding a madrasa to the southern perimeter, all in Gaza sandstone. The shrine of Sayyid Hashim is located in the northwestern corner of the mosque. Its plan reveals the humble prayer halls to the south, the bottom of the drawing, with the mihrab pointing to Mecca, and topped by the largest of the three domes of the mosque. The humble size of the prayer hall reflects in the humility of the person for whom this is dedicated. In compensation, the mosque offers a large, tranquil, central courtyard where throngs of people can meditate in peace and silence. Because of its scale, the resulting beauty combined with it being the revival place of the Prophet's great-grandfather, the Ottoman rulers for a period, named the city of Gaza, Gaza Hashim, in honor of the great-grandfather of the Prophet, a badge of honor for Ghazi. Of course, like the Church of St. Porphyrius, the mosque was also destroyed by the recent Israeli bombardment. Two notable leaders of this period must be recalled immediately. Immediately. First, Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi, after whom the longest and most famous street in Gaza is named, and which runs from north to south of the Gaza Strip, and he lived in which lives in Islamic folklore as the Muslim leader who captured Jerusalem from the Crusaders in 1187. The other leader in Gaza's history books is the famous military warrior Shuja ad-Din Uthman al-Kurdi, after whom the Gaza neighborhood of Al-Shuja'iyya, scene of the most defiant resistance today, is named after him to commemorate his martyrdom there in 1239, fighting the Crusaders. Two historical legends profiled and in the recent is the site mentioned earlier, but is named. During the Byzantine period, the mosque was turned into a basilica before it was again turned into a mosque under the Mamluk. This great mosque has undergone many transformations between Christian and Islamic uses and seems to adapt to both, a predecessor to the changes which had occurred in the use and function of the Cordoba Mosque in today's Andalus. The mosque is well known for its minaret, which is square-shaped at the bottom and octagonal at the top, typical of the Mamluk architectural style. The minaret in the mosque is constructed in the Gaza sandstone. The mosque was severely damaged by the British bombardment during World War I, but miraculously the minaret survived and the mosque was then restored in 1925 by the Supreme Muslim Council. It stands today proudly as an example of the great use of the famous Gaza marine sandstone known as Khurkhar, extracted from the local quarries. Sadly, the Omari Mosque was destroyed on 8 December 2023. What the British could not do in World War I, the Israelis did in the present war. But defiantly, the minaret still stands. A great monument in Gaza is the Al-Basha Palace, 13th century AD. It was built in sandstone and had changed ownership and functions throughout its history. It began as a two-story fort with underground passages constructed as a defense against the Crusaders and the Mongols. Briefly, in Napoleon's brief encounter with Gaza around 1799, it's said that it served as his official residence. The British used the palace as a police headquarters during the Nakba of 48 before it was turned into a girls' school. Then it was partly converted into a museum. Like the previous monuments, the Al-Basha Palace was destroyed completely by the recent Israeli bombardment. Hammam al-Samara is another Mamluk jewel in the center of the city. Although the name refers to the Samaritans of Gaza, it is translated as the brown bath. Located 3 meters below the street level, it is the only remaining functioning public building in Gaza out of 5 that existed before it. Rumors have it that rumored to be of pre-Islamic origin, it was nevertheless restored by the Mamluks, and as confirmed by a plaque on the entrance door. Consisting of several rooms of various temperatures and facilities, employing sprinklers, cold and hot water systems, and in the matas, which is a bath tub full of hot water, where the clients would rest at the end of their sessions. Its history is mired with financial difficulties due to the maintenance cost and the old heating system being maintained. These ended when the Islamic University of Gaza and the UN Development Program managed to partly restore the hammam after it was nearly demolished. The hammam still uses the old system of wood-fueled ovens and aqueducts, which would have been too expensive to replace without demolishing the structure. It has been said that the hammam was also used as a place for folk remedy of rheumatism. Mothers used to bring their children as a gesture of blessing when the hammam was privately open for female users. Just like all other monuments, and the hammam was destroyed in the recent bombardment of Gaza. Fast forward. Entertainment has been at the heart of Palestinian rich culture, and the cinema house is its affordable venue. Until recently, one of the oldest cinemas in Gaza is Al-Samir Theater, built in 1940 and had 300 seats. It was operating until the 1960s. Then it closed down. Then it reopened 10 years later. Then the first Palestinian Intifada came, and it closed forever after that, and it became a car dealership. Al-Nasser Cinema is one of the most beautiful cinema houses in Gaza. It was very active until the first Intifada, when it was shut down. Then it opened for a brief period, and then it was shut down again until the Oslo Accord, when it opened for a few years. And then, of course, it was burned down by some extremists. Although the theater has gone, the fate has it that the Al-Nasser film archives, very famous film archives, have survived. It had been reported that the archives, which were sourced from America, from Egypt, from India, from China, and even from Israel, had been reportedly saved in a hidden post and in the possession of the Gaza manager who originally ran the place until its demise. The manager now is a vegetable vendor in the streets of Gaza. Another beautiful cinema, designed in the touch of so-so Art Deco style, is the Al Jala cinema. It would have survived except for the cruel blockade, which restricted the supply of electricity and heating fuel and other services, which have been blocked by the Israeli authorities. So all the cinema houses were delegated to the dustbin of history, and another chunk of Gaza vernacular and built form is gone. But necessity breeds ingenuity in real time, and so it was that the traditional movie house has been replaced by a new built form, which has ingeniously sprung up to replace it. This is the open air cinema, the new vernacular of Gaza along the beautiful coast of Gaza. This new spontaneous entertainment culture was the brainchild of a Gaza cooperative by the name of Al-Bahr Ilna. In Arabic, the sea is ours. The cooperative launched the Cinema of the Sea Festival last year, showing the film Farha. Here we go. The story of a 1948 Palestinian Nakba depicted through the window of a village house where a Palestinian young girl witnesses the massacre of her family. Stories not unfamiliar to today's Gazans. And that's how a new and rare form of Gaza vernacular came about. Its main elements are simple: timber posts, metal ties, white cloth, and an oil-run generator to produce electricity for the small homemade projector. It took only a few local volunteers to build, employing recycled materials, and then a nice beach spot. And of course, simple. And we don't forget the projector operator himself. At the sea, you don't need to look for an audience, a child said. The sea has its own people. People are here all the time, including children. They get attracted by the sound and by the image. The sea, the beach, and the cinema is gone in today's war. A final word. UNESCO was adopted in 1945 after World War II. States, since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed. The Common Dignity Rights-based approach, initiated in 2007 by Dr. Amund Siniglarsson, was adopted by ICOMOS. It states, an integration of human rights concerns is essential to heritage identification and conservation, and considers that the implementation of heritage conservation needs to be supported by human rights-based approaches introduced as a sustainability check to all phases of these activities. Then came SIAV in 1976. It was formed in Bulgaria. Its aim is to inform the public and to promote understanding, to protect and to conserve the built vernacular heritage. All universal intentions are an honor badge for humanity, but lacking action and the means of enforcement, they will vanish just like the Gaza cinema houses did. If we remain silent and do not act, we are complicit. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, dear Antoine, for the wonderful talk and presentation. Thanks for taking us in this wonderful, great journey through history, and for kind of unrevealing a lot of connections that it wouldn't be easy to do this kind of tangling from prehistory till modern times in the wonderful way you made it today. Thanks for this enlightenment that you shared with us. You made it in a fantastic chronological way. So it's still a devastating situation, but hopefully through this discussion, we can also share some hopeful, and it's the words are hard now for me after looking at all these kind of buildings that is just rubble and all this amount of destruction that happened in the area and a long history, and even recently in a very short time, many of the listed buildings are just flat.
I'm sorry it took a little bit too long, but I couldn't stop.
It was very informative. Actually, we are so grateful that you were able to collect all this amount of information and make it in this wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Yes, we will take the questions from the floor, but first we will listen to our discussants and allow me to present them in a very short way. Of course, their experience is wide and huge, so forgive me for being so short and concise. Hala Aslan, she's an architect, and she had a long history of working in the architecture domain and in conservation. She has master's and a doctoral degree in architecture, and her doctoral degree is from France, and she worked in several conservation projects in Syria and the Middle East and beyond. Luna Rajab is an architect, an advocate, and an expert in cultural heritage. She also had a bachelor and master's degrees in architecture. She led and coordinated and also executed numerous architectural and heritage works. She worked for several organizations, from them UNESCO. She's a member of ICOMOS, and she's now the president of ICOMOS Syria. Samir Abdul Haq, he is also an architect and urban planner. He is the chair ICOMOS working group on the safeguarding of cultural heritage in Syria and Iraq, former vice president and secretary general for ICOMOS France, board member for Blue Shield France, and expert member in CIAV and other scientific committees in ICOMOS. So please, I would invite the three of you to share your reflections for about 5 minutes each, and then we will take the questions from the floor. Thank you. Samir, would you like to start? You can just unmute. No, we cannot hear you, Samir, because you need to unmute yourself to open your mic. Yes, perfect. Thank you. No, again, please. No, we still cannot hear you, Samir. Yes, now.
Is it correct?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I must say that I was expecting a presentation on vernacular architecture in Gaza, where the speaker, Antoine Rafoul, explained his view at the beginning. I would have been curious to know what was the vernacular architecture in Gaza, whether in urban or rural contexts. We had only few examples. However, we had much more examples about architecture in Gaza in general throughout history, and even until the last century, even the Art Nouveau and the Bauhaus architecture. And it was very interesting to go through all those examples. It's not that the names were new to us, as we read lots of reports about the damage in Gaza, but sometimes those reports mention names and places, but not always were accompanied with images. And so it was most useful to look at all those images, even if we were sad to understand and to know that many of them were damaged or completely destroyed. From the point of view of our ECOMOS regional group, Arab regional group, it would be interesting to keep a copy of this presentation in order to reuse some of the plans of the maps that were provided at different scales, and most important, to let people understand what was the richness of architecture and of cultural heritage in Gaza. And I think this should be known worldwide, not only in our small professional community. It would be very important to let the world know what is being wiped out at this very moment. Perhaps something still needs to be enlarged and detailed. It's the intangible heritage, the activities of people, the craftsmanship, including the building crafts, because the beauty of architecture, its excellence, depends a lot on those who contribute to it, whether architects, but also modest artisans, builders. It would be very important to also develop archives of that and try to locate what are the survivors from this massacre, this disaster. Well, anyway, thank you very much, Mr. Hoffman, for this very enlightening presentation.
Thank you so much, Samir. We move on to Luna, and then, of course, Antoine, you can definitely reflect back after the discussants share their own reflections and input. So, Luna, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Sia for preparing this presentation that is really crucial at this time of the continued aggression on Palestine and Gaza. And I would like to thank you, Marwa, for the preparation of this work, and all the team of SIAB. Thank you, Mr. Antoine, for this very important, interesting tour. You took us on a tour to see all this very, very rich cultural heritage of Gaza that destroyed completely all the words that has been said about Gaza. That is a land with no people. That is a land that there's no cultural heritage at all. That there isn't anything at all. I mean, you had give us even give us the most important place was in the center of all these civilization that came at the area, and Gaza was there. Gaza, as part of Palestine, and before that it was part of Greater Syria, and then before that it was a part of different kind of empires that came and civilization at the area, but it's important as a city by itself. I mean, for all these archaeological discoveries that we had found, all this history that we found, and we can notice very, very clearly they want to destroy this history. They are working on destroy the identity, the link of the Palestinian, the Gazan with their land. They are trying to erase everything that is related to that land between the indigenous people and this land. Maybe part of the Gazan who lives now or used to live in northern Gaza, now they are in Rafah, and now they're, and a big part of them, they did run away from their houses during the first Nakba. They are a Palestinian people who had their rich cultural heritage, either it's in the building skills or in the tangible, intangible skills. And even this, they are trying to erase it. What is happening now at this time in the meaning of erasing the cultural heritage, and nobody is doing anything at all, it's a genocide. We know that because they are killing people, even when they came to seek food, as we saw 2 days ago. There's no armed people, there is no resistance, there's nothing, but they just send drones to kill them. And we still hear voices saying that Israel had to defend itself. I think this became really, not frustrating, because they will live, Gaza people will live, and they will resist, and they will stay. It's their land, it's their home, and they will continue to live. As they built before, they will build again. And we had worked, as Samir said, to make a statement from the Arab Region Group. It's a new group that has been established that gather all the Arab region, the pays Arab, oh my God. Les pays, j'ai oublié le mot, c'est quoi les pays en anglais?
The countries, Arab
countries.
countries.
All the Arab countries to join together to try to find, to establish a group that has its power. And I do invite all of you to join us. And we managed to make a statement. We did publish it, and it was adapted by ICOMOS International, and it's on the website. They took it as a proof and as a reference for what's happening to the cultural heritage in Gaza. And thank you. There's lots of things to say, to talk about of Gaza, but I will leave that maybe to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Luna, and thank you so much again, Samir. Hala, she excused herself because she has issues with her internet. So as soon as she's back, hopefully she can share her contribution. Now we can open the questions to the floor. So it's either you write your question in the chat and we take it, or you just raise your hand and we can allow you to unmute yourself and share your question. I saw that Akram in the beginning, you were asking if you could ask a question, so feel free to write it in the chat or just unmute and ask your question.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marwa. Thank you to Antoine and to all the speakers and guests. Actually, I have a question, and not directly to Antoine, but all activists who are here. As we have, according to the experience of the UNESCO Director General, in Mali, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in many countries. They directly used to take measures against those people who distracted cultural heritage in Mali and in Afghanistan, in former Yugoslavia, and part of them has been condemned in the International Crime Court, according to the Hague Convention. But the problem, since 50 days of the war, more than 200 sites has been destroyed. The Director General of UNESCO keeps silent. She wouldn't like to speak anything against what's happening in Gaza, a genocide against cultural heritage. How we can move and practice pressure against her to urge her to speak in professionally, to speak against the destruction of cultural heritage in Gaza professionally, and to deal with the question of Gaza and not as a double standards. This is a very, very important question that we have to practice the pressure. I'm sure that the new group, Arab group, that Dr. Aslan and colleagues informed that in the phase of constituting such a group, it's very important actually to practice the pressure against the Director General of the UNESCO to take measures and to stand for her responsibilities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Akram. Antoine, would you like to say something? And Donna, you raised your hand. Maybe also you would like to respond to that.
All profound comments, but the one that covers all of them is that not a single person, a single nation can claim unitarily the heritage of a place, even if it exists in its territory. And my lecture throughout history like that shows that the culture of a region is the result of many sultanates, many caliphates, many empires, not one single. I mean, imagine that people, when they think of Gaza, they think, oh, it's Islamic, it's fundamentalist. And yet, Saint Porphyrius and Hilarion were born there, and they had institutions there. So nobody has a single claim on culture. That's the first thing I want to say. Dr. Samir said about archives. All these cultures that are left, represented or destroyed or what, have archives. And in one of the most profound scenes I saw in the war, I don't watch the war too much, but just happened to turn the TV on. After the destruction of the mosque, Al-Omari Mosque, one young boy was walking around in the debris, and he picked up a beautiful old, I think it's a Quran or document, and he flipped through it like this, you know. He didn't know what it was, and dust came out of it. I'm not trying to be romantic, but thus it was an intact document. It looked like a historic document, yeah. But what I want to say is that even if he didn't find it, even if those archives of the cinemas were not found, the people of the East where Gaza is located have it in their heads, their archives are a memory in their heads, and they can state it, they can relate it easily. So you may easily destroy a structure, but you cannot destroy a memory, which goes, I mean, I'm here, 81 years old. You know, I'm still remembering a lot of things that have gone. Haifa is gone where I used to live, yeah? But it is living in me. Now, what we need to do, what I'm talking about, I don't want to blame institutions for not acting. All I'm asking them, you are there to do a job. Please do it. You cannot just say, my name is so-and-so and our ethos is so-and-so. Do it. You did it for Palmyra during the Gulf War, the war on Saddam when ISIS came. It shocked the world. Why doesn't Gaza shock the world today? Has our vocabulary about colonialism and massacres changed? It's the same culture. We don't own it. It's for everybody, as I have hopefully said. And so I will quote a UNESCO statement. I had it, but I didn't read it. People and places must become one, and one is null and void without the other. Very simple. So what we are left with is a way to act, a way to protect, a way to demonstrate, to say something. We can write, I mean, the history of the region is documented all over the world, yeah, documented. And yet we are unable to act. The evidence is there, we're unable to act. And I think if anything comes out of this lecture is probably, hopefully, SIAV will actually stand up and be counted and take the case of salvaging the culture of Gaza, the vernacular of Gaza, the built form of Gaza, into a future action project, not just talking about it, but acting on it.
Thank you so much, Antoine. Luna, you can go ahead with your reflections.
Yes, I wanted to just reply. We had, as a regional committee, we had delivered the statement that we had made regarding the destruction of Gaza, the cultural heritage in Gaza. We had mentioned, of course, so many buildings. Most of them were mentioned in this presentation, and to put the history of each one of them, mentioning Saint Hilarions, mentioning Tal al-Ujul, mentioning the indigenous people, the transportation of these people, how it will influence on it, and we have a demand. We did send it to ICMS International, and we did send it to the UNESCO. Now, I need to make it very clear that UNESCO, when it was established for the sake of all the cultural heritage, the universal cultural heritage. But unfortunately, with the time, it became a political non-organization body that works only when it suits them or the people who lead this organization. As Antoine said, when it was Daesh who worked on destroying Palmyra in Syria, they moved. But now when Israel had destroyed Al-Raqqa citadel just 1 week or 10 days ago, nothing has been said. There was no condemnation of it. There's nothing at all. And they keep destroying cultural heritage, even in Syria, not only in Gaza, and nothing is saying anything. That means they only condemn when it suits them to condemn, or when the head of the UNESCO is, look, okay, he's a pro-Israeli, so he's not she's not going to say anything. Unfortunately, she is not. And we know previously that she is a pro-Israeli. So I think until she changed, maybe something will move at UNESCO, unless we can really make let's say a very strong pressure that will put her in a situation that she cannot but reply to our demands. But I don't know if we are able to do so, or she is capable of replying to our demands. Thank you.
Thank you, Luna. We had two hands, Maha Abu Bakr and then Hosam Mahdi. Maha, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Everyone. First of all, I would like to thank all of you for the organization. Thank you, Marwa. Thanks for Dr. Antoine for his very, very interesting presentation. It illustrates the history of the architecture of Gaza along thousands of years. And I was very interested, especially concerning the Christian architecture. It was something like continuous architecture from Coptic architecture to Palestinian land. I just have a very simple question about the first beginning of the presentation, where Dr. Antoine was saying that people of Gaza was the greatest people of the sea people of Mediterranean. And I passed by this information in the Fletcher's book, History of Architecture, and I got wondered about this because it sounds like they are not, Palestinians are not the original people of Palestine. And that's why I refer to historians, because I'm not a historian, I'm an architect, historians in Cairo University, Faculty of Arts, Department of History, Dr. Mohammed Afifi, and he told me that this is not a precise information. So I just want to revise Dr. Antoine about this information if he sure about that the people of Palestine were originally sea people, and then they landed on the Palestinian land, and that's why it was called Palestine. Thank you.
Antoine, would you like to give your thoughts on Maha's question?
I didn't. Whether is it the sea people that was being raised as a question, or is it the fact that Palestinians are not the original people?
Yeah. My question is that if you mean that the Palestinian people are originally the sea people of Mediterranean, do you mean that?
Well, if you read Noor Masalha's book,
okay,
that will give you the answer. In a short statement now like that, I cannot answer you. I've read it twice, and it's an amazing piece of research about Palestine and the original name of the Palestinians. But we are not here to debate names. We're talking about cultures.
No, but this is just like you have said that politics and culture are the two faces of the same coin.
Politics, and yeah, today yes. They are, of course.
And every day. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Maha, and thank you, Antoine. We move on, and Hosam Mahdi.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, Hosam.
Okay, thank you. I would like to thank Antoine very much, and the commentators also, and everyone, and to you, Marwa. I actually just to comment on the fact that UNESCO and the so-called international community reacted to Palmyra. They did react when Palmyra was destroyed, but they did not react when Aleppo was destroyed, or Homs, or Mosul. So as Luna said, it's very selective kind of ethics, if we may call it that. And it's really, I think it's, in a way, what's happening to Gaza today is really showing us, if we want to understand, it's exposing this double standard, this hypocrisy of the so-called international community and justice and all these things. And I think it's so obvious that we are actually in a kind of neo-colonial kind of life that we are. It just has a lot of facades and masks and nice words, but we still have two different standards, the one for the first world and the second, and the one for the rest of the world, and very often selectively issues sites and heritage in our lands when it relates to present Western heritage and present Western culture. Then it becomes important, because Europe claims that its roots is in Egypt and Syria and Palestine and Iraq, and therefore so they did actually in the colonial period hijacked our heritage, and they react very strongly when that heritage that they claim is the root of their culture today, they react. But when it is to do with a whole population, a city with all sorts of layers, we don't see much happening. So that's one point. Also, I would like to thank Antoine for approaching vernacular in what I could understand as the vernacular. It's not really the romantic, painting of some nice dome and palm tree in front of it and things like that. But the vernacular can be the reinforced concrete, can be the people sitting on the beach. And the vernacular is tangible and intangible, and it is living. And because of that, it's very important to remember, if we consider what we are leaving for the future as vernacular heritage, it's most probably is going to be all the informal buildings, including what the Gazans did when they were besieged. So I really appreciate your approach, Antoine, so I don't see what you have covered throughout, including the archaeology. I don't see any of that as outside the vernacular as I understand it. And I think it is important, as Samir highlighted, to remember always the intangible, because the intangible is the driver for the tangible. And within SIAV, we all know within SIAV, we had all these issues that people consider it not scientific when we talk about people. Let's talk only about stones and buildings. And, once you are in the vernacular, if not all heritage, but definitely vernacular, then people is in the heart of that. And this is one thing that, again, it is to do with the double standards and the hypocrisy and so on. But thank you so much. I think it's very valuable lecture, Antoine.
Thank you, Habibi. Thank you. Just a comment on the previous, was it Maha? You see, when I look, I learned a lot. I mean, as an architect, I had traveled as well, but in this research for this lecture, and thanks to Marwa for driving me to do it. When I look back on these pages of history that I wrote and all this stuff, the uniqueness of Gaza is that it is at the center of everything that happened in history. I really didn't know that, I mean, I knew it had a historic region in it. I didn't know all these empires. Everybody who wanted to conquer anybody went through Gaza. Christians, Muslims, Turks, Ottomans, British, Chinese, Semites, anti-Semites. Everybody went through Gaza and left something in it. Even the people who came from the sea people. You cannot avoid it. It sits there at the coast. And the biggest crime that Israel is doing today, which we don't want to talk about politics at this moment, is that that sea, that dimension, is completely blocked. That dimension. So they have to go down, they have to dig down, they have to find archaeology. But what about the effect that the sea people, the maritime people of Gaza, like the Phoenicians of Lebanon up north, they used that massive sea to explore other cultures and invite other cultures to Gaza. And the fact that Gaza sits in that little enclave of territory, which is, God, between Africa and the East and Europe even, that gives it a universal value that goes beyond religion, beyond politics, beyond anything. And I keep saying, well, the destruction that is happening there has not happened. You know, in World War II, people were careful when they bombed London. They didn't bomb St. Paul's Cathedral or other historic. They were careful. Even the Nazis were careful. When they bombed Dresden, they didn't give a damn. They bombed everything. Now, Israel doesn't hold the book and say, well, St. Hilarion, hold on, don't bomb it. They will erase it. So what I'm saying is the significance of Gaza is not because it is Gaza itself, but because it's a symbol of millennia of cultures and archaeology and life and vernacular. I mean, you know, I didn't dig into the history of vernacular back then. You know, I would like to spend more time doing this. So maybe it is the Gaza war that woke us up, thanks to Marwa. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want the war to color my thinking about the value of Gaza or not. It woke me up, certainly. But Gaza didn't need Antoine Rafoul to give it importance. It is there, and I hope my lecture exposed that and demonstrated that.
It did in a wonderful way, Antoine. Thank you so much. Samir, you would like to share your thoughts?
Yes, if you allow me.
Yes.
As I have been monitoring the situation in Iraq and Syria, I'd like to make a few comments. There was an outcry, okay, about a few sites like Palmyra in Syria, perhaps less for Mosul. But anyway, this doesn't mean that any country raised a finger to save this heritage. I mean, when Daesh, ISIS, went to Palmyra, it crossed the desert, and it was seen by all satellite and images, and nobody, no power, tried to stop them. And ISIS killed the garrison and destroyed the monuments. UNESCO at that time was headed by someone else, and that person even tried to encourage a monitoring of the destructions, but until now, nothing has been rebuilt yet. So what I mean is that UNESCO has a moral position, a scientific position, but not an actual. It's not an actual fighting force. It's not its role. So we cannot expect too much from UNESCO. People change, some are better than others. And powerful countries have whatever what they say don't really move on the ground. No army came to protect Palmyra when Daesh was approaching. Only the national army was there, and it suffered. And what is very important to understand from Gaza, from Syria as well, from other places, is that it is local people, local citizens. It's people with skills, professional people who dedicate themselves to save their heritage, to monitor the situation, and after that to rebuild that. At some time, external funding may be necessary for difficult restoration. Some good expertise might be necessary, but what is most important is the mobilization of the local people, local citizens, local communities. This is what saves the cultural heritage, because people feel in their own self, in their guts, that they relate to that heritage. It is most important. I will quote an example. I will take it from Jewish history. King Solomon, Nabi Sulaiman in Arabic, was once confronted to two women, and they came to him claiming a child. Each one was saying, "This is my child." And he had a tweak. He said, "Well, that's the solution is very simple. Cut the child in two and give a half of it to each one." One of them said, "No, please keep it alive. I prefer not to have anything of that. Give it to the other." And King Solomon said, "Now I found the real mother. The actual mother is the one who wanted her child alive." And it is the same thing for heritage. For those who care about heritage are the real people concerned with heritage, and somehow owners dedicate themselves to the heritage, and those who destroy that heritage because they claim the land, they destroy the land are not entitled to keep that heritage. Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment, Marwa, very profound what Samir said. If heritage, you see, the decision that the judge made is actually a political decision. I mean, he said, well, I know the real mother who doesn't want to kill the child. The same with heritage. Palestine, the Palestinians didn't want to divide, to have the UN dividing it. But why can't heritage have, with all its fantastic vocabulary and written stuff, why can't they have a political arm like a judge as well to execute and put their fantastic words, I'm looking at it, into action? Because the Chinese will talk, I said once about Lifta, I would defend Lifta even if it was a Jewish village, I would defend it. Because culture belongs to all. The statements and the constitutions of UNESCO, CIAV, everybody, are so gloriously embellished, so gloriously. All they need is a political arm. UNRWA has more of a say in aid to Gaza because they say, hey, they're dying, let's go inside and save them. I don't see it in culture. I don't see it happening in culture. Of course, we want to save children and babies and mother daily, on a daily basis. The point I'm making is that why can't all these glorious institutions have a political arm to them to actually effect a change and to provide protection before? The conventions are there, during wars, you don't demolish, you don't do that. But people will do it as they did it in Gaza because they know they can get away with it. There's no actual recourse to justice. There isn't. Even the ICG now debating Gaza and all this stuff, they will make it into a political decision in the end. I don't know what the final solution is, but I think if we are devoid of political action, a reminder that talk is not sufficient. We really need to act because in front of our eyes, Al-Omari Mosque was bombed. Very simple. Because the guys who did it, they can get away with it. It's part of their ethnic cultural cleansing, but that's apart. I'll leave it aside. It's the fact that we are unable to stop the devastation to our culture, our common cultural heritage. Everybody enjoyed it, as you saw in my lecture. Many, many empires came and went, Christians, Muslims, everybody enjoyed Gaza and the region and the culture there. And they created new things every time they came and went. They didn't demolish things. Actually, the mosque, one of the mosques I transferred into Christian, Muslim, back to Christian. Even the cinema went into a car dealership. It's recycled stuff, but it wasn't demolished. Cordoba is not demolished. They planted a church in the middle of it. It's exciting. I saw it. It's interesting. Hopefully, it demonstrates the communality of our beliefs. The joint, like the church, Hilarion, and the mosque next to it. They were living side by side. They didn't sit down and say, hey, we have to build the mosque next to the church, but it's natural. It's a natural conglomeration of culture. But yet one state can come and do exactly the opposite. And the biggest democracy in the world, who promotes culture, presumably, allowed it. So we need to resist it. We need to act on it. And I hope UNESCO, CIAV, ICOMOS, I don't know. I hope they actually, they have such a mission. It's a fantastic mission, but they have no instrument to actually exercise it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Antoine. Hossam, you have a reflection?
Yes, I just want to react to Antoine's ideas, because although I totally sympathize with the fact that we do not have an implementation tools or machinery, but I think, you know, this is the nature of culture and of heritage, you know, because I mean, wars are you know, they destroy. And if, I mean, it's like the example that Samir gave, you know, it's not like one mother wants half the child in one way, so the real mother should have it in the other way or something. I mean, like, I think if the guardians or the, you know, the champions of heritage were held arms, for example, there will be a more target. I mean, like, for example, I think the Blue Shield had this argument at some stage that maybe during armed conflicts, maybe they should, their crew, when they get in, they should be armed. But then if they do, they will be targeted. They need to be seen as neutral, the way Red Cross is, you know. See how many journalists are killed. See if they were armed. They will be, then Israel would actually boast about killing them, because they will say, oh, they are terrorists, you know. So I think unfortunately, I think our role will need to have always be to be a peaceful resistance and perseverance and you know, activism. And it cannot, even the political aspect, you know, we look at UNESCO and see the lobbying and the influence and impact on international politics and the powers in play. They influence UNESCO, although it is supposed to be representing or the membership is all the countries. But the reality is that the powerful ones are the ones who are dictating the agenda. So I really totally understand the frustration that you, Antoine, was expressing, but I insist that we cannot really, I think we cannot really have an implementation tool outside heritage and culture. Thank you.
Thank you, Hossam. We have a question in the chat. It's hard to know the name, but yeah, and then we take even after that. Based on global experience relating to the restoration of historic buildings and historic archaeological sites after wars, and given the extent and targeted distractions in Gaza, how possible will it be to work on the reconstruction of those comprehensively damaged sites? That's a hard question. Antoine, would you like to share something?
It's a coincidence. I am tangentially involved in a group based in London called Architects for Gaza, AFG, established recently post the start of the war to rebuild Gaza. It sounds a big thing, but to rebuild Gaza using the same material which remained after the demolition of Gaza. Recycle the material. It's a big project. It's a big undertaking. Recycling the remnants of Gaza and building them again. Using the labor of the people who lived in Gaza and using as little materials as possible that has to be imported from outside, because importing materials pollutes the environment. You know, you have ships, you have airplanes, you have God knows what. And all of that will pollute the Gaza skyline more or equal to the pollution of the thousands of bombs that have been dropped on it. So yes, recycling, it's easy to say, but I think hopefully AFG, Architects for Gaza, will do it, because it requires, in the process of recycling, the process of identification of polluted materials. You know, there are a lot of things happening when a building gets demolished. Everything goes into it. But actually, don't say we're gonna take all of that rubbish, throw it into the sea, make a new port, and bring in new materials. That's not gonna work. We're not gonna do that. They're not going to do that. So yes, recycling the demolished buildings, making them, and I think it is saying we are going to rebuild. We're not going to be defied. We are going to rebuild from the buildings that have been demolished. When people talk about their homes, they talk about effects, you know, things that they remember, the doors, the windows, and all this. So it's recycling that material, hopefully, with big scientific brains that will come into the project as well. It's early days, but hopefully it's a new way of rebuilding vernacular, hopefully.
If I may add a small thing, it's actually extremely important also to use the memory or the living memory with the locals in Gaza or in Palestine in general, because this is the living archive. A lot of archives and a lot of documents have been destroyed and damaged, either intentionally or unintentionally, because of the war situation. So the living memory in the within the people's experience is also very important to include in this kind of projects for reconstruction and rebuilding processes. And definitely the use of the existing material and limits importing any other material or also any other construction methods and techniques, because that can be also one gate to open a recolonization again for the architecture in the area. It's not an easy process, of course, but hopefully there will be a way or another in order to rebuild again the whole of Palestine. Eva and then Maha. Sorry, Eva and then Luna. Sorry.
Thank you, Marwa. Thank you, Antoine. The lecture was profound. It was heartbreaking. Thank you for all the great comments. I've wanted to share very briefly that we've discussed many times once about soft laws of UNESCO and the advisory bodies, how we have no instrumentarium to act legally. But I think that I'm a Bulgarian. I live in Germany I've been living for many years. And ever since the war started, Germany is kind of preoccupied with the idea of Israel and so on. So there is no public space for opinions in favor of Palestine. There is no mentioning of Palestine, of its culture, of anything, suffering, whatever you like to call it. There's nothing. I'm sure it's the same pretty much in all Western society. But the power of UNESCO, the power of CIAF, of ICOMOS, in my opinion, lies precisely within those very soft but very agitating and very, very moving and touching ideas, and driving people to be inspired to act and to research, dedicate their lives to the right, the justice, or to the truth. And I think you captured it very well in your open space, or in your logo. Lest we forgot, And what I will personally do with your presentation, translated in Bulgaria, and forward it to a couple of architecture universities. And I'm really sure that the students there will enjoy it very much. Because I'm sure they sympathize, as do many other people in Germany, France, and UK. And there is a very strong undercurrent of people who think likewise. But if they're not like us, if they have not dedicated their, or partially dedicated their professional life to culture and architecture, they need constant motivation. And that's how I see currently the contribution, the great contribution of Formosa and the rest of the advisory bodies, UNESCO, which in fact is the smallest of agencies, smallest of the UN agencies. But thank you so much. It was really, really, really rewarding. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eden. Thank you. Antoine, would you like to reflect on?
The audio was very bad, so I only heard every other word or every third word. I'm sorry, but I couldn't get the whole audio clear to be able to answer, unless you can summarize his statement and I can make a comment.
He was basically trying. Also, that was wobbly a little bit, but to my understanding, Ivan kindly was trying also to show solidarity and support to all the ideas that was shared by you and also by the rest of the commentators. He also at the end showed interesting initiative from his side that he would be willingly share the talk with the younger generation, young architects and young professionals in Bulgaria and other parts of the world. And he also referred to the situation in Germany and how there is no even a public space where people could show their solidarity or express their thoughts and opinion towards what is happening in Palestine. And he also said like it could be also in other parts of the world. And I echo and I second what Ivan actually mentioned. And I think it's the hope is in the coming generation. We need to raise their awareness about history, about culture, about humanity, and about what is happening in other parts of the world where media either camouflage what is happening or is just like do not cover with a true eye what is happening in many parts of the world. So
is it Ivan name?
Yes, Ivan. Yes.
Are you an architect or what?
Can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yes.
It's better, yeah.
I'm really sorry, but there were children screaming all around me. I am an architect, yes, and I'm Bulgarian and I'm based in Germany, and then I'm engaged with cultural heritage, world heritage, on and off.
I would invite you to join AFG actually, which is in its early stages, Architects for Gaza. And if you leave your email or contact with Marwa, I'll be happy to take that on and make the connections. You see, the thing also about being in Germany and being in Bulgaria, in today's social media, in today's culture of information, you wouldn't have had access to the amazing support Palestine has, not because it's Palestine, but because it's an injustice that has happened in Gaza. Forget Palestine, it's a place that has been completely genocided, and the world all over, the people all over the world, including Washington, D.C., the mother of all Zionism, are every weekend supporting it. So social media, information, which would not figure in demonstration against World War II, after World War II. There's no connection, no way. Everybody was blind, leading the blind. But now you cannot claim not to know. And if you do not claim not to know, meaning you know, then you have to act, because if you don't act, you're complicit. So welcome, Ivan, to the architectural action world. And beyond the written statements, we have to act to save Gaza, to rebuild it. So we will be in touch through Marwa, if that's okay with you.
We can be directly in touch. Sure, I have your contact and I'll write.
Exactly.
Thank you.
He's the Secretary General for CF, so he is actually in control of the mailing lists and
Wonderful.
so,
Wonderful.
yes.
Let me know, no problem. You have my email, you have my telephone number, Marwa. Pass it on, please. Yeah, thank you very much.
I'm sure Ivan will be also the first to contact you after this.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thank you, Ivan, for the wonderful reflections and comments, and yeah, also showing us some hope for disseminating this knowledge for the younger generation. It was Luna and then Samir.
Yes, there's of course a declaration of Dresden that talks about the reconstruction of monuments destroyed by war. So there is a declaration regarding the reconstruction. And I want to highlight an issue I had during the war on Syria. The destruction that happened in Aleppo was really severe, not only in Aleppo, but in other cities also. And I was involved in a research regarding the importance of, the importance of cultural heritage and the rebuilding of the cultural heritage. It was, something that I was working on to more understand this link between human being and its cultural heritage. And during the research, I had faced several, cases when people they can't go back to Aleppo because now it's linked with, the memory of death, the memory of their own people, their family has been killed. They cannot go back because the neighborhood doesn't exist anymore. The area doesn't exist anymore. They are traumatized. But also there's people who really come back. The neighborhood was collapsing, but they just put on the half of the house, a curtain, and they just came back to live there. They don't want to leave their neighborhood. When they declare it a little bit safe, they came back. And now the merchants in Aleppo, they came to their own, magazine, their own shops, and they start to rebuild themselves again. And we were talking once in one of the meetings with the Committee of Syria and Iraq in Morocco a few years ago, about what are the rules that we need to take to do so. So I did mention that they're not going to wait for us, the people who are on ground. They're not going to wait for any kind of scientific people, academic, or people who just came and give them advices to make a rule. They will do it themselves. They will rebuild with the thing that they do have it. So as Antoine said, maybe it's better that we try to gather all the information that we had and try to build, some regulation that are possible to be implemented on site with the situation in Gaza when they're not. I'm not sure if they are going to allow them to bring material, as you mentioned, or to bring anything at all. So it's a very hard situation, but maybe they will do it. And in the memory, also in that research, and in the memory of people, there was a sketch for Syria. It's an initiative with ESCWA about what is the most important for them. I mean, rebuilding Syria. What do you imagine of rebuilding Syria on a sketchbook? And it was astonishing that more than 65% of the people showed us the heritage of their city all around Syria. They showed us the heritage that they remember. It's a collective memory. It's a collective issue. So it is very important that this heritage will remain in the memory. It will be rebuilt again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Luna. Samir?
Yes, the situation in Syria was not simple. In Iraq also, it is not simple. It is going to be even worse in Gaza because so many factors are coming in, like the environment, the pollution, the destruction of all infrastructures. Rebuilding would not be easy, but anyway, some steps could be figured out and could be also prepared. The first of them is documentation, the recording of everything, maps, plans, photographs, etc. And it was very useful to have this meeting together. We are just a handful in this webinar, but it was immensely useful to listen to Antoine and to begin thinking. And although we don't have the same profile, same training, we don't even live in the same place, but each one of us could do something and should look about what he can personally do or what we could do all together. And perhaps this would be a continuation of this meeting. I listened to the case of Germany. Well, it is certainly difficult, but it is only one of the European countries. I have seen excellent articles in the British press, and I have myself communicated, I forwarded our Arab group statement to an important newspaper in France, and the result was a full one-page article about the cultural heritage, the destruction of cultural heritage in Gaza. People now listen about the mass killings, the genocide of the population, but this is not the only problem in Gaza. Also, the cultural genocide is very important, and people with knowledge can contribute to let this known as well. It is perhaps too late to safeguard that heritage. I mean, some institution, even ICOMOS, UNESCO and even ICOMOS should have made stronger statements in the beginning while this heritage was not destroyed yet. But anyway, we have to look forward to a more positive future, and every one of us can contribute. So let us keep in touch. And this initiative by Marwa and Hossam is very important. Let us keep in touch and try to think of other events, other avenues, other actions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samir. And with your kind statement, maybe we could say like this could be a final statement for our interesting discussion. Thank you so much, Antoine, Rafoul, for the wonderful talk. A lot of very positive comments in the chat, a lot of thanks and appreciation. And many people wants to join the initiative for rebuilding or architects for Gaza, as you mentioned. So we will be in touch with you concerning that. Thanks to all who are still already here. And sorry for being over time. The discussion was very rich, and it was hard to actually make it shorter. I really appreciate the support and effort from the CF Bureau, Hussam Mahdi, even in Enev, I hope I also pronouncing it correct, and Xiaoyong, and looking forward to more work together the coming years during our mission and CF Bureau. Thanks to all CF members who also joined us today, and thanks to others who joined from outside CF, from even outside ICOMOS. We really appreciate your contribution, and we look forward to keep serving you and sharing CF contribution with all of you. Thanks a lot to our discussants, Luna, Hala, and Samir. And sorry that Hala wasn't able to be with us because of her internet problem. Luna, you also shared a lot of links and documents. Thank you so much for also being active in the chat. The same as Ivan and Hossam. That's highly appreciated. We already noted all the emails, and we will be sharing the link for the recording and also more information about CF and about ICOMOS in general. All gratitude to all of you. Thank you so much for your time and for contribution. A really big thank you, Antoine, for this wonderful talk.
Yes.
And I hope it will be a legacy that will be kept online for more people to learn from it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Antoine. Thank you, Marwa. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Samir.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you, Hussam. Bye bye.
Bye bye, everyone.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.